The Oracl3 Network.
We have an active shooter. We have an active shooter inside the fairgrounds.
Welcome to Active Shooter, a podcast that covers the whys, the hows, and the aftermath of active shooter events. We will delve into the lives interrupted by domestic terrorists. We will investigate the background of the shooter and together discuss ways in which they can be stopped or even prevented in the future. We will also discuss the failures of our mental health system.
They have an active shooter in the building. A second call says they are being attacked.
I've been shot. 1692 means we got shots fired. 4:15 at Route 291. Sounded like an automatic firearm.
But appears to be shots fired.
We will look at the media responses and discover together how they may have inadvertently inspired and contributed to the rise of the mass shootings.
Active shooter, reports of an active shooter,
mass casualty incidents.
This is not a political podcast, nor a podcast about gun control. This is a podcast that studies the psychology behind active shooters, and how and why they make the decisions they have made to take the lives of innocent people.
I love you. I love you. It's going to be fine. Can you hide somewhere? Can you play dead?
Welcome to Active Shooter. Thank you for listening.
Hey, Rainbow Warriors. This is my disclaimer. Beyond the Rainbow is a true crime podcast. It's not suitable for young children, and maybe not even for some adults. I tend to swear like a sailor, and I'm kind of proud of that. Listener discretion is advised. Hey there, Rainbow Warriors. Welcome to Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBT. I'm your host, CJ. You know, I'd like to mention something real quick. Whether these guys put it out there as a joke that's really not funny at all, or if they're serious, the guys who did it, and I'm not even sure who they are, they're saying April 24th will be Abuse and Rape a Woman Day. And I think that is probably one of the most fucking disgusting things I've ever heard. So, if you are one of my female listeners, please take heed and be safe. Make sure you're carrying your pepper spray, your taser, and if you have a self-defense tool, make sure you carry that. If you don't have a self-defense tool, I know where you can get one. One of my listeners and somebody I'm proud to call a friend, Amanda, they go by Stony Panda on Instagram. Amanda does sell these, and I just want y'all to stay safe out there. If you'd like to help support the show, my link to buy me a coffee is in the show notes. I'm currently saving up for a new microphone, and hopefully some other podcasting equipment will follow. Find me on Facebook at Beyond the Rainbow Podcast. I'm on Instagram at Rainbow Crimes 12 and Beyond the Rainbow, because I'm kind of a dummy and I accidentally made 2 accounts. I'm also on Twitter at Rainbow Crimes. And be sure to check out my website at beyondtherainbowpodcast.com. Here you can find a list of all my episodes, a link to my merch store, and the expansive list I have going of missing but not forgotten LGBTQ people. This episode's missing but not forgotten LGBTQ person is William Ray Chapman. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of information to go on in William's case, but I'll give you what I got. William went missing from Wichita, Kansas on December 8, 2008. William's a white man who stands between 5'8" and 5'10". He weighs between 180 and 210 pounds. His tongue is pierced. His hair is black, but he's been known to dye his hair other colors. William was 23 years old when he disappeared, which would make him 36 if he was found alive today. William carries himself very flamboyantly, so he'd be kind of hard to miss in a crowd. He wears wigs and makeup, and his nickname is Vanity Vuitton, which kind of makes me wonder if maybe this is his drag character, or just a normal alter ego persona. William worked as a video blogger and a musician. His family describes him as very social, and they don't believe he left on his own accord. William's vehicle is a black 2002 Ford, but no other information on the model or if it was a truck or car was made available. And that's really all I have on William. But I'll post a link to his flyer on my website. That way you can go and take a look at what William looked like when he went missing. I thought for this episode we might take a trip and go see what the exotic country of Brazil has cooked up for us. For any of you that might have listened to some of my older episodes, way back when I covered the murder of a Brazilian activist, Marielle Franco. She was a strong woman who stood for the rights of the LGBTQ. It was speculated that the president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, was somehow responsible for her murder. Since then, 2 Brazilian police officers have been arrested for Marielle's murder. Of course, Bolsonaro and his sons call this alleged involvement in Marielle's death fake news. Sound familiar? Bolsonaro is also dubbed the Trump of the tropics. He weighs heavily conservative, and he has some very public anti-LGBTQ remarks, including his sons could never be gay because they're too well educated. And if one of his sons were gay, he would hope that they would die in an accident. He sounds like a real peach, doesn't he? And everyone knows if you're well educated, you can't possibly be gay. I normally don't read Wikipedia articles verbatim, but this one, well, it just kind of struck me as odd considering what a dick the Brazilian president is. The article states lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender LGBT rights in Brazil are among the most advanced in Latin America and the world, with LGBT people having marriage rights available nationwide since May 2013. On June 13, 2019, the Brazilian Supreme Court ruled that discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity is a crime akin to racism. Let's marinate on that quote for just a second. And while we do, let it also be known that Brazil has the highest rate of LGBT murders in the world. More than 1 LGBTQ person is murdered every single day due to their orientation or their gender identity. There was, I'm not sure if it still exists, but there was an evangelical reality show on the Brazilian television stations. It aired live exorcisms of the homosexual devil from gays and lesbians. I don't think it works that way, bitches. Why don't people educate themselves on this shit? Why are they so stupid that they think they can pray the gay away?
I'm gonna thump you on your forehead with the palm of my hand while I say a few religious prayers, and voila, your gay is gone.
No. Just stop, you idiots, and learn something useful. You can't change people who are born a certain way. And if you think God doesn't want them that way, you're fucking wrong. You cannot change what you are born as, and you cannot force somebody to be what you want them to be. Even though Brazil is considered an LGBTQ-friendly country, almost all of the murders of LGBT people have been credited to homophobia or transphobia. It seems like a very fickle place for LGBTQ. Sometimes they love us, sometimes they don't. But I guess the U.S. can be like that too. Years ago in the country of Brazil, a serial killer of gay men was on the loose. That killer still walks free, in spite of an arrest and a trial. The killings took place during a little over a year time span, from July 2007 to August 2008. Media had several monikers for the murderer and the crime, from the Rainbow Killer to the Rainbow Maniac to the Paturis Park murders. Paturis Park is where 13 killings occurred. This park is a well-known hookup spot for gay men. It sort of reminds me of the gay beats of Australia. And maybe I'm naive, but I'm learning that there's gay hookup parks in every country. I think that there must be. Maybe somebody can answer this for me. Are there lesbian hookup parks anywhere? Or are those just called gay bars and Match.com? Please reach out to me and let me know, Rainbow Warriors, because I'm asking for a friend. The dark-complected, scruffy-looking man pulled up into an empty parking space at the park. Aside from the chirp of the crickets, hardly any sound could be heard. The park is much quieter at nighttime. There's no sound of children playing on the play structures, mothers yelling after them, dogs barking, or ducks quacking in the pond. A handful of male sex workers looking to meet up with male clients meander around the park. The occasional man waiting to meet up with another man he met on a gay dating app might be sitting on a park bench. The scruffy man, he eyeballed a sex worker. The sex worker appeared handsome enough, although the scruffy man didn't really know for sure. It was dark. Only the light of the moon and a few dim outdoor lamps lit the area. The sex worker appeared to be in his mid-20s. The scruffy man called the sex worker over, and a price was established. The two walked off into a more secluded area of the park. When a spot was found away from any possible prying eyes, the sex worker was told to lower his pants and underwear, then to get on his knees and please the client orally. The sex worker did as he was instructed. Several minutes into the oral sex, the scruffy man ejaculated. Instead of feeling relief or relaxed, rage set in. How could this faggot make the scruffy man explode in his mouth? He was not gay. He was not gay. The scruffy man quickly pulled up his jeans, zipped them, and removed a handgun from his jacket. While the sex worker was still on his knees, pants around his ankles, he was shot in the back of the head, killing him instantly. Parque dos Paturis, or Paturis Park, is located near Sao Paulo, Brazil, which has one of, if not the largest gay pride parades and celebrations in the world. Even back in 2007, over 3.5 million people had joined the festivities in Sao Paulo. The Rainbow Maniac's first murder that we know about happened the night of July 4th, 2007. While people in the United States were setting off fireworks to celebrate Independence Day, 32-year-old Jose Henrique was at Paturis Park. He was looking to meet a man that he had a brief conversation with on a gay dating app. The men were to have a sexual encounter with each other at the park. What poor Jose encountered instead was himself half naked and a .38 caliber bullet shot in the back of his head. Aside from Jose Henrique, other victims of the Rainbow Maniac weren't named in the media. Some of them were male sex workers, and some were men that the Rainbow Maniac met on a dating app. And it seems as though unless it's a really high-profile serial killer case, you don't really learn anything about the victims. And it's those people whose story is so important. But the thing about this case, for Brazil, it was pretty much high profile. It kind of makes you astutely aware that the gay men didn't matter enough to have their names mentioned. Up until August of 2008, 12 more gay men were murdered in the same area. 11 of the men were shot in the back of the head. The last man was shot 12 times, and one of the other men that wasn't shot was beaten to death. All men were in various stages of undress, and there's 3 other victims that might be connected with the Rainbow Maniac, for a total of possibly 16 victims. The victims ranged in age between 20 and 40 years old. 9 of them were murdered in an almost exact replica as to how Jose was slaughtered. Then the men were dumped in underbrush with their pants wrapped around their knees or ankles. That last man that was murdered with 12 bullets pumped into his skull, it happened on August 19th, 2008. There was a credible witness that actually came forward. He said he saw the man who did this to the victim. The witness identified a retired state police sergeant who was now a grocery store security guard. 46-year-old Jairo Franco was taken to the police station for questioning. A second witness came forward to say he saw Jairo Franco at Paturis Park often. He was always cruising for guys. Police were certain that they captured the Rainbow Maniac. A police detective said that the man responsible for these murders was highly homophobic and hated gays. But wouldn't it be more realistic to think that the man responsible hated himself for being attracted to men? Especially since the victims had their pants wrapped around their knees and ankles? Obviously, some type of sexual experience was happening before the gay man was killed. Jairo Franco declared his innocence, but he was arrested and he went to trial anyway. In spite of having two witnesses identify him as being a frequent flyer at Paturis Park, and one of the witnesses even saying that they saw him shoot the last victim 12 times, the jury of 7 voted 4-2, with 1 undecided, that Jairo Franco was innocent. He was released in August of 2011. It's kind of odd how when he was arrested, the murders in Paturis Park stopped. No one else has ever been arrested for the murders of these 13 gay men. And the Rainbow Maniac case? It remains unsolved. So, Rainbow Warriors, since this episode's story of the Rainbow Maniac ran kind of short because of lack of information, I'd like to share a couple more cases with you from Brazil. A 42-year-old trans woman named Dandara de Santos was dragged from her own home in Fortaleza, Brazil on February 15, 2017 by a mob of men. They actually went into her house and grabbed her and pulled her out to the front of her home. And once Dandara was outside, these men started to beat her. They were hitting her with their fists, they were kicking her, they were throwing rocks at her. They hit her with their shoes, and one even found a wooden plank to beat her with. And they did this all while a crowd was watching, witnessing the beating. The crowd was even hurling homophobic slurs at her. They taunted her for having hormone injections to make her breasts bigger. As Dandara laid crying and begging for the men to spare her life, they pick her up and they throw her into a wheelbarrow. The crowd watching is laughing and cheering. A man is filming the crime on his phone, and he can be heard in the film saying, "They're gonna kill the faggot," and then he too starts to laugh. The men wheeled Dandara to an alley where they continued to maul her. Eventually, they shot her dead. The video footage on Dandara's murder went viral, and yes, I did watch it. But thankfully, these bastards were found and they were arrested. But whatever they go through after their arrest and trial will be nothing compared to what they did to Dandara. She was another human being who was loved by people. She left behind a mother and sister. 8 men were arrested and 5 were sentenced in her death. The charges were manslaughter, cruelty, and not allowing Dandara to defend herself. Which is fucking ridiculous. How was she supposed to defend herself against 8 men who surprise attacked her from her own home? And only manslaughter, really? Collectively, these murderers earned themselves 83 years in a Brazilian prison. All of the criminals posed that transphobia was the aggravating factor. No shit. All right, one last story from Brazil. In December 2012 in Campo Grande, Brazil, a very adorable 20-year-old student by the name of Lawrence Bianchio was savagely murdered by 2 15-year-old boys. One of the boys met Lawrence 2 weeks before murdering him. The boy claimed Lawrence made a pass at him. And I say bullshit. Lawrence and the 15-year-old had talked and exchanged numbers, which is one of the reasons I say bullshit. If Lawrence made a pass at him and he was offended, why exchange names and phone numbers? And for all we know, Lawrence was going to tutor the boy in math. Anyway, 2 weeks after meeting Lawrence, the 15-year-old teamed up with a 15-year-old friend, and the two boys had a plan to kill Lawrence. They wanted to steal his car and escape. The boy who initially met Lawrence called Lawrence, and they set up a time to meet. Lawrence had the forethought to tell friends the name of the kid he was meeting and give the phone number of the boy. Again, we have no proof that there was anything of sexual nature planned in this meeting. The boy and his friends say they met up with Lawrence at a mall. They got into his car and they drove around. The boys said that Lawrence stopped the car somewhere in a remote location, and then all three of them masturbated. Does that make any sense? That's pretty sketchy, because if you're not interested in someone, you're not going to whip out your wanger and start masturbating. And there's no evidence to verify that. But that's what the boys said. Then they said Lawrence drove them back to the mall. The boys said Lawrence said goodbye, and the boy in the back seat then grabbed Lawrence's seatbelt and strangled him with it. The boys said that they tried to push Lawrence's body out of the car, but it was too heavy. So they stole his cell phone and car stereo, and they called it a day. When Lawrence went missing, his friends went to the police. They gave him the name of the kid and the phone number. When police got to the boy's home, they found Lawrence's belongings. The boy and his friend were arrested. The boy who strangled Lawrence said that gays are vermin. Oh, is that why you're masturbating in a car with one? That same boy made it clear that this was a hate crime. The other boy said of Lawrence, he wanted to kiss me and I wanted to kill him. I think that their story would have been a little more convincing without their masturbation aspect, but they probably threw that in to give their own narrative to the story, to make it seem like 20-year-old Lawrence was some kind of pedophile. Both boys claimed the gay panic defense. I searched for the verdict of this case, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I don't know what kind of sentence these boys received, if any. So I imagine if they were even convicted of Lawrence's murder, the sentence wasn't as harsh as it might have been had they been adults. But knowing the hatred for gays, and knowing that they would allow the gay panic defense to be used, these little Peckerwoods probably got off scot-free. It really makes me pause and wonder, how much better off would countries be if hateful, biased leaderships weren't in place? The United States just got off a 4-year ride of hate. We had anti-race, anti-women, and anti-LGBT shoved down our throats. No wonder we're rioting in what used to be considered safe streets. And then the leader of Brazil also cramming anti-LGBT rhetoric into Brazilians' faces. Putin in Russia throwing suspected gay men into encampments and killing them. And Muslim terrorist cells enacting their Sharia law, blindfolding gay men and pushing them off buildings to their deaths. In a perfect world, our leaders would insist on harmony and indoctrinate laws to protect everyone, every group of human beings, regardless of their race, sexuality, or gender. Love you, Rainbow Warriors. Remember, it's not a crime to be gay, unless you're a murderer.